Hi, everybody. I'm Ari Aronson from Ari Agency, and I'm here with Christine Beverley, who is the Director of Recruitment, and Vicky Karianakis, who is doing some research for us. And we wanted to talk about some of the articles that we've posted on our blog, and specifically on the 4-day work week, which we titled Why Working Long Hours is Unproductive. This was a blog piece we did about a month and a half ago, and that led us into a discussion around agencies' pricing strategy, because we noticed the 4-day work week seemed like this was a very interesting idea that was saving companies money, at the same time was increasing productivity. But what about those companies and agencies who have a pricing model on a hourly basis? And so that was another piece that we put out in September, and then our most recent piece as well. But have a look at our blog. But let's dig into this sort of 4-day work week. And Vicky, can you share some of the research with us, and then we can have a discussion about it?
For sure. So, over the past decade, more and more research has been debunking the myth that more hours equals more productivity. For example, Iceland trialed a shorter work week with over 2,500 workers over 4 years, which is a huge sample size, and saw an improvement in both productivity and the quality of work people were doing. Similarly, Microsoft Japan found that a 4-day work week increased employees' productivities by a whole 40% while saving office expenses. And right now, the UK is finishing up their experiment with 4-day work week global, and the results thus far have been overwhelmingly positive for productivity and engagement. While US and Canada, they actually started their own experiments with 40 companies this April. So we'll see that data trickle in soon. But basically, bottom line is these shorter work weeks are consistently showing improvements in productivity and employee engagement. And the companies who finished their experiments have ended up adopting these shorter work weeks permanently, which says a lot about how the leadership team's perspectives have changed. But still, leadership teams across North America are extremely hesitant to implement shorter work weeks. And instead, the average number of hours employees work per week has spiked to all-time highs over the past 2 years. So with that context, I'll turn it over to you both. And one of the questions I have is, why do you think employers are hesitant to implement shorter work weeks, even after seeing the results other companies have had?
Go ahead, Christine.
Thanks. Yeah, it is a really interesting paradigm when you see results that are so phenomenally positive to embrace a new way of working and 4 days versus 5. But then you see resistance, discomfort, or hesitancy of some companies to actually embrace it. And I think part of it, Vicky and Ari, is just overthinking it. Before some of these companies that got involved with the pilot study with 4-day work week, one of the issues was stopping before they even got started, because if you don't have experience yet and you haven't done it, they overthink it and they start trying to think about it in their minds as to how it's going to go and what the challenges are going to be and the issues that they're going to have before they've actually started to implement things. And don't get me wrong, you for sure have to do some problem solving in advance to address challenges. I'm not saying don't do that, but at some point you think about it too much and you stop yourself before you even get started. So I think that's part of the issue. I've got some other thoughts on that too, but Ari, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it takes a very progressive organization to consider a 4-day work week. I think that these are interesting examples that are happening overseas, and I'm sure there are examples locally. I've heard of companies and agencies, toiling with this idea and trying to sort this out. I think if the research is showing that you can be more productive with less hours, that's pretty amazing. I think that is really counter to what some of the most traditional minded management and office organizational structures are like. When you go into a typical office and the way things were before the pandemic, it was about being in your seat. It was about being at the office. It was about, spending 40 plus hours in the office, and many people working on weekends. But if you can be more productive with less time, that really changes a lot of things. And then I said to myself, well, what does that mean for those that bill on an hourly basis? And how are you going to show productivity if you're working 60, 80 hours a week? So it's an interesting, what we're seeing is an interesting trend. And I think that it would take a lot for people to understand how are we tracking and measuring productivity within each individual worker? So if you know that, wait a minute, if someone needs to complete certain tasks and can get them done in less time, well, then fantastic. But I don't know whether companies are really aligned in that way, or whether some of the companies requiring a lot of collaboration, like agencies, and a lot of work in groups and teams, if that can sustain itself. But I feel it's amazing to say that productivity doesn't equal more hours.
You know what, just to one last thought, that to add on to what you were saying, or piggyback on what you were talking about, Ari, is I wonder if there's, I don't know what the right term, I think there's a term for this. Seeing the results and totally acknowledging that they're positive and that it works and it's a good thing to do, but then looking at your business and your model and your industry and saying, yeah, but I'm different. It works for you, but it's not going to work for me. And again, sort of getting in their own way and running interference without fully exploring it, because maybe some companies or some leaders are feeling that it works for you, but not for me. So it works for some types of environments, but not agencies, or government agencies, but not manufacturing, or, whatever. So it's just overcoming those hurdles and those preconceived notions as to what will work for you before you even explore it. I wonder if that might be part of it.
Yeah, and I think I would agree. I think if anything, if it's saying that you can be productive with less time, what does that look like in your organization?
Exactly.
Obviously, if you're a manufacturing plant and you have to have your plant running, 24 hours,
Yep,
well,
7
you're not going to
days.
shut, yeah, and you're not going to shut the plant down. But I think that if you're in an organization where you can see that, maybe creativity is at its optimal, or your productivity within what you're doing from a business standpoint. I mean, Microsoft is a huge company, and if they're going to institute this, or they're going to move to a 4-day work week, we also know that they're saving a lot of money. They're not printing, they're not spending money on, supplies, and not spending money on a sort of electricity in the office, all kinds of things. So it's definitely interesting that we're seeing this, and I'm very curious, especially within the sort of hybrid and remote work that we're seeing, how that's going to impact it as well.
Yeah.
So that's a good lead in to the next question, which is, how do you think the pandemic has played a role in this entire discussion on productivity?
That's interesting.
You want to go, Christine?
I think so, yeah. With the pandemic, obviously everybody was moved to working online, and everyone started working from their homes. And there comes into play this matter of trust, and trusting that people are being productive, and that their bum is in the seat, so to speak, during the set 9 to 5 or whatever their set hours are for their business model, that their bum is in a seat for a set amount of time, and they trust that the work is getting done, and they're not cutting out. So I feel like trust has really come into play during the pandemic. Ari, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we noticed is there's been incredible examples of those who have been overworked. They've worked beyond their normal hours. You can be far more productive, far more efficient on a back-to-back, video call than you could racing between meeting rooms or traveling outside your office to have those meetings. So I think everyone sees that there's an ease and efficiency with meeting and business. I think many, many people worked far more and continue to work more efficiently remotely than they do in the office. I think the challenge was the opposite, which was, how do you avoid people from burning out? How do you support those who are at home, who have personal obligations, who have families, who have kids, or other things going on that can't be on video calls every hour? And how do you institute certain rules within the company to allow for breaks that happen, after every 60 minutes or 90 minutes or between meetings? So I think that is what I noticed. A lot of people were having to deal with. So I think productivity was at an incredible high. At the same time, being in the office presents its other opportunities as well around culture and whatnot. But we're also seeing signs that certain cultures have developed remotely and have been kept intact and have been doing well. So interesting for sure.
Yeah, they have. And from with the pandemic, and going back to the theme of trust that I was starting to talk about, I feel that trust has been increased because of the pandemic, and old ways of working and longer hours and 5 days or whatnot. It's been proven that you can work from home and cut down your commute time. You can have more balance. You can work in less hours and still get more work done. And leaders are now their trust, I think, has been increased, that they trust that their employees are getting the work done because the results speak for themselves. They are being productive. They're delivering on results while everybody's virtual. So the pandemic, I feel, has really opened people's eyes to other ways of working and other possibilities that didn't necessarily exist before so holistically as they do now.
For sure. Definitely companies were forced to try out things that they might have never done
it pressed them
themselves on their own terms. And then my last question is, how much of an impact do you think that a company who is offering a short week, how much of an impact do you think that would have on attracting candidates for them?
I'll start with this one. I agree. The attraction, as we're seeing, and we're recognizing, actually, our most recent article that we just put out, which was really on compensation strategies, had a lot to talk about sort of non-compensation perks. So I think what we were seeing in the market is that actually compensation isn't the most important factor to someone potentially moving jobs. And I think that we saw the Great Resignation, and that probably had a lot to do with people's happiness in their current roles in their companies. At the same time, compensation played a part of that. People were really paying down, spending more than they perhaps needed to, but there was really a demand for talent. I think what we've uncovered and the research is showing is that that's not necessarily the case. So I think someone that's offering a 4-day work week or offering remote work or offering flexible hours or those types of things, I think are going to have an advantage because that's going to appeal to the marketplace. That's going to appeal to those looking for work and looking for, making sure they have proper work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I feel too that the 4-day work week, the concept of 4 days doesn't necessarily need to be so concretely defined as 4 days, Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Friday. It really piggybacking what you were sharing, Ari, about working anywhere, anytime, however many hours that is. The bottom line is getting the work done and delivering the results for the business and driving the business forward, leveraging people's strengths, leveraging the times that they work best. So we call it 4 days, but it's X number of hours on a certain number of days to deliver X results, period. Whether that time happens during the hours that you're working, let's say I choose Monday to Thursday and I want Fridays off, but it could also be I'm working Saturdays, Sundays because that just works best for me and I start early in the morning and I finish at 12 or 1. And so from a talent attraction standpoint, particularly with the Gen X, Gen Y, they are no longer accepting being mandated to work a specific way. They already know, and they're already wise before the pandemic even hit, to the fact that they can get a lot of work done in a shorter amount of time, starting early, finishing late, or whatever model it is. And they're demanding that. Not demanding, they are demanding it, and they're turning offers down because of it. And some of the research that I had noted, particularly ages 22 to 35, 32% of them said that they would stay if they were offered a 4-day work week. And 80% of them, that's a huge number, 80% favored a 4-day work week. So that's a big retention strategy, a huge attraction strategy. And 90% of them felt that the 5-day work week is outdated. And I think the pandemic just pressed the rest of us who weren't already on that boat to really start seeing that and open our minds and eyes to that, what they already knew.
Yeah, and sort of what I'll say to that, I think there's also a challenge when you have baby boomers and more senior executives who are used to being in office, who are used to seeing people, spending time with them in person, really having to feel out, wait a minute, they are enjoying being back in the office. They feel those connections. And for them, when they're hiring new people as well, they want them to be in the office. So I think we have a real dichotomy between the Gen X and the younger generation that's moving in and the older generation, which we know some of them are retiring for sure. So I think that there's stuff to be learned between both sides. And I think that there needs to be some sort of healthy compromise in what could be a hybrid model or a model that is flexible. So interesting times for sure.
It is. Yeah. There's so much wisdom to be gained by connecting those older, almost retired or about to retire, like us, and the younger generation. But if you could get them in a room and put them together to hash out this model for any organization, you're going to get the best of wisdom and the best of innovation and fresh ideas, bring it together and help to move the business model forward in whatever way to really maximize on productivity. Like that's the bottom line. It doesn't matter how you get there. It's just like, let's be productive, drive results, deliver results for the business, and, you know, really leverage those two incredible minds that are full of wisdom.
Sounds good. Vicky, I don't know if we have much more time, but this was really helpful. Any other last words for us? Otherwise, take a look for the latest blog article on compensation strategies to attract talent. That could be quite interesting for everybody.
No, that's great. Thanks, both.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
This was fun. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.